Alrighty guys, let's summarize our vertex form again, and then we're going to try a whole bunch more examples. So actually the first values that I kind of like to find are the vertex values. So H and K make up your vertex, and we want to remember that H is opposite, K stays the same. And so when I'm looking at the H value, because it goes in place of X and K goes in place of Y, really what H is doing is moving the graph left and right, and kind of oppositely. Like if I think left, I think negative, but it's actually positive. And then it's going to move right when it's negative, which is so strange. And then our K value moves us up and down. And it does exactly as you would expect. So up is positive and down is negative. So when I combine those two things together, that sort of puts us exactly where we need to be. Like if I move left and then up, that is exactly where my vertex goes. So H is moving me left and K is moving me up, or whatever. So that's super important to find. The other important value to identify is that A value. Now the A value is sort of like slope. I've been calling it slope-ish, or like slope in quotations, because it's not really slope, but it does kind of work that way for 1 point. But the things that it does to the graph is, like, if A is negative, it makes my graph point downwards, versus if A is positive, then my parabola points upwards. Okay, so that's super helpful in understanding the shape of my graph. The other thing that it can tell me that we kind of talked about in the last one is if A is bigger or smaller, it makes my parabola wider or narrower. So if A is like a big number, like bigger than 1, and really it doesn't have to do with the positive or negative, so really the absolute value of A. Like I ignore the positive and negative stuff, just if the number is bigger than 1. So like if I'm looking at a -2, I'm really just thinking 2. That means your graph is going fast, so it's going to be narrow. So like these numbers are 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Anything bigger than 1. Now, if my A value is smaller than 1, but not really 0, so kind of all the stuff in between 0 and 1, and again, just ignoring the sign of it, then I'm a fractional number, so like a half or a fourth. And if you remember, those were going real slow, which makes my graph wide. So these are numbers like half or 2/3 or 1/4, or just anything fractionally less than 1. Okay, so let's just jump into a bunch of examples. If we take a look at this one here, I'm going to find that vertex. I'm looking inside parentheses, and it's going to be opposite. Outside parentheses stays the same. And then that A value is just 1. So I'll go to plot my vertex at 1, -3. And then because we have our line of symmetry here, I can do up 1 over 1, but then also flip it over, put it on the other side, which also happens to be my y-intercept, so I kind of can't get another point here, and so we'll just sketch out our little parabola. And so when we think about how this changed from like our OG parabola, the one that is super basic, didn't move or didn't do any of the stuff, it's centered right at 0, 0. This one has moved right 1 and down 3. It didn't get any wider or narrower, and it didn't flip because my A value is just 1. So when we're talking about transforming it, how did it change from that OG parabola where it's just super basic? All right, let's try a whole bunch more. Okay, so looking at this one here, I'm going to find that vertex, looking inside parentheses and making it opposite. Outside stays the same. Front number is my A value. So I can kind of already tell right now. Actually, let me graph these ones. So here's like my OG parabola. Nothing's changed. It's centered right at 0, 0. It hasn't moved at all. This graph is at 2, negative 4. Has a slope of 1. I could find the y-intercept, but let's just do these ones quickly. And so we sketch this parabola out now. And it's like this same parabola is just located in a different spot. So we want to talk about how it differs or how it moved compared to the first one. So I can see that I went right 2 and then down 4 to get to down 4 where it is now. And I'm just following the vertex to find that. Also, you can kind of see it in the vertex because like 2, 4. And like down means negative and right means positive, so that's why. All right, working our way across here, I can see that my vertex is the inside number but opposite. Outside number, there isn't one, so 0. Also, I can tell that my slope is negative 1. So when I go to graph this parabola now, we're going to plot our vertex at negative 3, 0. And now when I do my slope, I'm going to go down 1 over 1 and flip it over and put it on the other side. So this parabola here is a maximum when this one was a minimum. So some things that happened is this graph definitely moved left 3, not up or down at all, and it also got flipped over because of the negative. Cute. Okay, looking at this one here, I can see inside is negative 2, so we're going to make it positive 2. Outside, there's nothing being added or subtracted, so it's 0. My slope is that front number, and it's 2. So I'm going to go plot that vertex at 2, 0. Then I'm going to do my slope of 2, so I'm going to go up 2 over 1, and then flip that over, put it on the other side to make a cute little parabola. Look at that little skinny guy. So skinny. So when I talk about how this parabola that I just drew compares to the OG parabola, I can see that the vertex moved right 2. Also, I can see it here. And also because my slope is 2, that's a big number, so it's going faster, making it skinnier or narrow. So this is narrow. Okay, on to this next one here. When I find my vertex, I'm looking inside, making it opposite. I'm looking outside, keeping it the same. Then I'm finding that slope, which is that front number. It's negative 2. Then I want to go graph my vertex, so we'll plot 1, 1. And then I'm going to do my slope, so down 2 over 1. And then flip it over, put it on the other side of that axis of symmetry right there. And then I'm going to sketch out this little parabola, which again looks narrower. So when I think about the things that has happened to my graph compared to the OG graph, it went right 1. It also went up 1. Then it like flipped over and started going real fast. So it flipped and got narrow because it's a 2. So the negative on the slope tells me that it flipped. The 2 tells me that it's narrow or fast. Alrighty, looking at these last ones here, if we take a look at this one first, the vertex, I'm looking inside parentheses and there's no number in there, so 0. Looking outside parentheses and I take exactly what I see, so -4. And then that front number is my slope, so half. So when I go to plot this guy, we're going to go to our vertex at 0, -4. Then we're going to do that slope of half. Now, remember, slope for a parabola is a little different. I can't do it as rise over run. I have to do it always as rise and always run 1. So I'm going to rise up a half and run 1. Then I can flip it over, put it on the other side, which is showing me that this graph is moving slower because it didn't get all the way up there like it normally does, which makes this graph wider. So some things that happened, it didn't move left or right at all, it just moved down 4. And then because this is half, it got wider or moved slower. Last one, if we look for that vertex, I'm looking inside parentheses, making it the opposite number. I'm looking outside parentheses, keeping it the same. We're looking for that a value, which is out front being multiplied, and it's a low-key -1. Then we go to plot our vertex, so we go -1, 2. And then we do our slope of -1, and then we can flip it over, put it on the other side to get the rest of our parabola here. And we can sketch it out. And so the things that happened to this graph is it moved left 1, because it's negative, up 2, and then because this is negative, it got flipped over, but it's not any narrower or wider because it's simply a 1. Now guys, the reason I love vertex form so much is because the information is all right there. All the numbers are there. You just have to put them in the right spots. You don't really have to do any math. You just need to look and see what your numbers are and put the correct numbers to the vertex and the correct number to the slope. And understand that if you don't see a number for the vertex, it's 0. Or if you don't see a number for slope, then it's 1. So there you go. That's vertex form. See you in the next time.